It's time for the Academy's combat test with the most powerful students. Everyone stepped into the simulation arena where monsters are summoned to test everyone's strength. The class was split into groups with 2 warriors and 2 mages. The moment the counter hit 0, a skeleton warrior shows up. One of the mages breaks out of the backline and rushes to the front, blowing the monster apart with a single mana charge punch. The whole team froze. The veteran professor was speechless. The top warriors just stood there shocked, watching him smash monsters with his bare hands. When more skeletons showed up, the kid activated Mana Weapon. It's a rare physical damage skill, and he cleared every floor by himself. Everyone was blown away by this student's power. On level 2, a Drog shows up, a creature so terrifying it would make the professor sweat. But the kid just laughed. Minutes later, the arena is completely wrecked because he blew past level 10 without a single mistake and all by himself. He broke the time record. The whole class lost their minds trying to figure out where this guy came from. This is Jae-hyun. But before all that power, in another life, he was a nobody with a low rank who only existed as a human shield in dungeons for the mages. During a raid break, while he was checking his status, the system crashed and a strange voice told him to follow a green light. He was pretty startled, but since he's a loser with no mom and abandoned by his dad, he had nothing to lose. So he followed the light. As he followed it, he tried to access the system, but it was still down. After walking for a while, he finds a hidden green door inside the dungeon. Jae-hyun gets hyped and walks straight into what looks like Mount Olympus. Right in the center, there's a glowing item, the Lost Eye of Odin, the only mythic item in the world. Its main skill is absolute calculation. It analyzes any magic and completely breaks it apart. On top of that, it unlocks runes and with a blank card, lets you copy your enemy's powers. This is where you realize why this guy is a nobody. His first idea is to sell the item. He was going to sell godlike power, just so someone could rob him later. But the item has a catch. Once you equip it, it never comes off. The genius keeps the item and heads back to the group. His partner Myung-ho was worried about him disappearing, but the MC came back smiling and promised to buy him a drink. His friend had no idea what was going on because he had always been flat broke. While the team was moving, the dungeon ceiling collapses and toxic gas spreads everywhere. The Meteor Guild crew starts coughing up blood on the spot. In the middle of the chaos, an invisible enemy stabs Myung-ho with a sword. Before blacking out, his friend tells Jae-hyun to run, and he bolts without thinking twice. The MC clearly skipped cardio and had to stop to catch his breath. In that moment of weakness, the enemy appears from behind and swings a chain blade slicing through his arm. The most shocking part was finding out the killer is his own raider agent, Young Woo-min. The guy smiles and confesses he works as a hitman. He was paid to wipe out the guild, and the next target is him. The fight starts, and Jae-hyun knows it's going to go badly because Young is a rank A mage. While getting beat up, he tries to connect the dots to figure out who paid for this. While running, a memory hit him of his father calling him useless. When he asks if his father was behind it, the mage laughs and says he's pretty smart for a rank D. That stung, but it got even worse when he found out his own father paid the hitman to kill his mother 5 years ago. What did you say? The hitman went for the final blow, but Jae-hyun dodged on instinct and equipped the Eye of Odin. Young was shaken by the insane energy coming off him. The villain tried to catch him off guard, but with a cool head, the protagonist destroyed his chain at the last second. Eyes froze because his magic stopped working. The MC comboed both skills, broke the guy's spell, and stole the ability for himself. With no way to attack, the villain tried throwing up a shield, but the protagonist used the skill again and shattered his defense. Fueled by rage, he finally avenged his mother. After taking down the hitman, Jae-hyun was so badly wounded that he collapsed on the ground with nothing left. Right when he got the mythic item and became OP, he dies. In Ice Sky stories, you got the truck Koen, but here it's the system Koen that reboots the whole story and throws him 11 years into the past. An Azura goddess appears, offering her help. When he touches her hand, he jolts awake in the body of a younger version of himself. He looks around and sees a photo of his mother, and in that same second, he leaves the room, goes to her, and hugs her tight. Later, alone in his room, a sharp pain in his chest snaps him back. The system confirms the date, November 15th, 2020. He's really gone back, and his body has been healed by 20%. Breathing hard, he wonders if this is still a dream, but one look around tells him he's really back in his old home. Another notification appears with a quest called A Break, is the mother of success. His job is simple, rest until he's fully recovered, and he'll get a blank card as the reward. He lets out a long breath, trying to steady himself. Then he thinks about dying in that battle and somehow being sent 11 years into the past by this new system, back to his 3rd year of middle school. He checks the calendar and realizes he hasn't enrolled in Mill's Academy yet. He also finds a note he wrote to himself telling him to choose martial arts, but he grabs a pen and crosses it out. He won't waste this second chance on martial arts. This time, he's becoming a mage. Later, he eats dinner with his mother, struggling not to cry. She notices how strange he's been acting lately. Earlier, he hugged her the second she got home and broke down crying. Now she gently asks if something's wrong. Forcing a smile, he says it was only a bad dream, but the memories of losing her are much worse than a nightmare. After working up the nerve, he says there's something he wants to talk about, and she tells him to go ahead. She can tell he may not want to enter Mill's Academy. She knows how dangerous and competitive that path is and says it's okay if he wants a normal school instead. She won't force him, but instead, he says he wants to change his major and join the magic class. His mother laughs softly and agrees right away, though she's surprised by the sudden switch from martial arts. Even so, she trusts him and pats his cheek, telling him to choose what makes him happy, whether it's martial arts or magic. She says not to worry about money. She'll support him no matter what. Touched by that, he starts crying again, and through it all, thoughts of his father, Min Sung-ho, an A-rank raider, come rushing back along with his need to grow stronger and get revenge. So Jae-hyun begins serious training with basic exercises. He also gets a blank card for clearing his first quest. His body starts getting stronger and more fit. Jae-hyun still doesn't fully understand the Nornir system, but as long as it works, he isn't complaining. With knowledge from his past life, he can grab dungeon items before anyone else, and his old experience as a guide will help. Still, his real skills are limited to martial arts, absolute calculation, and blitz chain copied from Youngwoo Min. He leans back, opens the system, and checks his stats. As expected, his level and base stats have returned to what they should be at this point. Still, he kept all his passive skills from his past life, plus 2 new maxed out ones. One who is observed by the gods, and Supreme God's Eye. He already knows about absolute calculation and blitz chain, so now he focuses on the passives. First, he checks one who is observed by the gods, a skill tied to fast growth through divine blessings. It also let him keep his passive skills through regression and gives him an extra stat point every time he levels up. The downside is that most of the Azura's demigods are now watching him. After that, he moves on to his next skill. Supreme God's Eye is another top-tier passive that lets him see through lies, illusions, and hidden truth. Then there's the active skill Blitz Chain, which attacks with electrified chains and can even paralyze enemies. The more chains he uses, the more mana it costs. He checks the rest of his stats. They're all terrible, but the one he wants to raise most is magic, since that's the key to his new path. He also knows endurance matters. Long fights are all about lasting longer than your enemy. After thinking it over, he decides to save his new blank card for a healing skill, since he already has offense covered. Even in 2020, when mages aren't valued much, healers are still incredibly rare. They get treated like royalty no matter their rank. So a mage with healing powers would earn real respect. The problem is finding someone with a healing ability to copy will be incredibly hard. He only used his last blank card on Youngwoo Min because he had no choice. This time, he won't waste one when he doesn't know how many the system will give him. Just then, his phone rings, and when he checks it, his eyes go wide at the name Kim Yu-shin on the screen. Kim Yu-shin is his childhood friend, someone who's always been close to him and shared his dream of getting into Mill's Academy to become a raider. In his previous life, she died in his arms, and this time, he's determined to save her. A small smile forms as he reads her message. She's asking him to come with her to Saintess Yu Sung-eun's seminar. That instantly lifts his mood because Yu Sung-eun is famous for her magic, especially sacrifice magic. Without wasting a second, he gets up, grabs his hoodie, and tells his mom he'll be back soon. Once outside, he texts Kim Yu-shin that he's on the way. He heads out right away to meet her. At the same time, a Rolls-Royce pushes through traffic. Inside, Saintess Yu Sung-eun sits quietly while her manager goes over the schedule and asks if she's okay, worried she's been overworking herself. She says she's fine, just tired, reminding him that sacrifice comes at the cost of her own vitality. The manager looks uneasy, wishing someone else had healing abilities close to Lady Sung-eun's. He knows exhaustion will catch up with her sooner or later. Soon, Jae-hyun and Kim Yu-shin arrive at the event. She excitedly pulls him through the crowd, and when they stop, he jokes that maybe she only brought him so she wouldn't get lost. The girl gets flustered and snaps at him, telling him not to say weird stuff like that. Then she goes quiet, which pretty much proves he was right. He keeps messing with her, joking that it's amazing how someone so smart can be this bad with directions. Even while teasing her, Jae-hyun is thankful she brought him here. If he can copy Yu Sung-eun's sacrifice skill now, it could change everything for him. It might even become one of his biggest advantages in Korea. As everyone takes their seats, he and the girl are stunned by how many people showed up. Still, it's no shock. She's the guild master of Lotus, a top healer famous in Korea and overseas. Even in a time when raiders aren't treated like disposable shields, she always puts other people first. Soon, she walks onto the stage and the crowd erupts. Jae-hyun watches closely, waiting for the right chance to copy her skill. As he waits, he remembers that in 2 months, she'll become seriously ill during an Itaewon dungeon raid because of her own healing skill, Sacrifice. If he copies it, he might be the only one who can save her. Meanwhile, Kim Yoo-shin gets way too excited, and Jae-hyun finds it a little irritating. On stage, the saintess talks about how the world has fallen into chaos because of Yggdrasil and the monsters taking human lives. Even so, she tells the crowd not to give up and to trust in the awakened who can still help save humanity. She urges them to become raiders too. When her speech ends, the audience is thrilled. Jae-hyun admits her words make sense. Fighting monsters on the front lines is terrifying, so of course people hesitate to become raiders. He knows that better than anyone, since he once planned to sell Odin's eye just to avoid raiding and make money another way. As they leave, the girl keeps going on and on about the saintess, and Jae-hyun keeps teasing her until she's completely fed up. Then he mentions that he already called her mom to come get her because her sense of direction is hopeless. She tells him to just ride with them, but he says he has something else to do. Before leaving, he casually says he's changing his path and will focus fully on magic, so he may need her help later. Then he walks off without explaining, leaving her hurt and confused. Jae-hyun starts searching around and finally finds the saintess's car. A grin spreads across his face as he walks over, but the manager spots him first and says they're not meeting fans right now. Jae-hyun answers boldly that he came to see director Yeo Un-seo-yeon. The manager lets out an annoyed sigh, tells him to leave, and says he should respect her privacy, because even she would hate this kind of interruption. Jae-hyun firmly says he's not here as a fan. To prove it, he reveals that Lady Song Yo-shur-un has an incurable illness and claims he's the only one who can heal it. That instantly shocks the director and makes him furious. He grabs Jae-hyun by the collar and demands to know where he heard that. Jae-hyun stays calm, tells him not to make a scene, and points out the people watching. Just then, the lady rolls down her window and speaks to him herself, asking if he can truly back up what he said. He answers without hesitation. Yes, he can cure her. She's still wary, but decides to give him a chance. If he's lying, it'll be obvious soon enough. Still, his confidence only makes him seem more suspicious. She tells her manager to make time and bring the boy somewhere private to talk. After they move to a quieter place, she gets right to it and asks how he knows about her illness. Jae-hyun apologizes, but says he can't answer that. If she insists, then he won't treat her. She laughs at how bold he is, then asks the next question. How exactly does he plan to heal her? Jae-hyun answers honestly. He plans to copy her sacrifice skill. That shocks her, and the manager loses patience. He shouts, asking if Jae-hyun even understands what unique skill is and how he thinks he can copy something that belongs to her alone. Unique skills are basically S-rank abilities, the highest tier, gained only through bloodline inheritance or personal awakening. Unlike normal skills, their formulas can't be broken down or copied. That's why they stay exclusive to one person or family. Jae-hyun calmly says he already knows all that. Otherwise, he never would have come. The lady quickly tells her manager to settle down and says they'll at least hear him out. Then she asks if really do this, and he confidently says yes. Her problem is the penalty from sacrifice. To heal herself, she needs a skill of equal or higher rank, and because sacrifice demands an offering to the gods, she can't use it on her own body. In the end, she agrees to let him try. As her magic starts to shine, Jae-hyun can barely hide his excitement and copies the skill right away. A system window asks whether he wants to store sacrifice in the blank card, and he immediately accepts. After the copy is complete, he activates sacrifice and forms its power in his palm, leaving both of them stunned. Before healing her, Jae-hyun decides to handle the deal first, but the skill itself is huge. It sends out a healing wave that restores multiple allies and removes debuffs. Against undead, it turns into an attack called Judgment of Light. And best of all, because he copied it with a blank card, it comes with none of the original penalties. Then she asks what he wants from Lotus. On the surface, she sounds calm, but inside, she thinks handling a middle schooler should be easy, especially as Lotus's leader. Jae-hyun doesn't waste his time. He wants sponsorship. She gives a small laugh and asks if he means support to help him grow into a raider. He says yes right away. It's his dream, and to get stronger, he needs resources, connections, and backing. Moved by both his resolve and ability, she agrees to sponsor him, but with one condition. Jae-hyun is impressed. Even now, she refuses to give up ground in the negotiation. She explains that her illness is her own issue, not lotuses. What he's asking for means support from the whole guild, and the guild has no reason to help him for free. Jae-hyun tells her to name her terms. If they sound fair, he'll decide whether to agree. His mind runs through all kinds of possibilities, but her answer is simple. She wants him to join Lotus. He immediately asks if she's serious about recruiting him, and she starts listing her reasons. First, he uncovered secret information about the Lotus leader's illness, something only a handful of people knew, so his information skills are clearly exceptional. Second, he perfectly copied her sacrifice skill, something she has never seen before, and she wants to know if anyone else in the world can do that. Jae-hyun feels awkward hearing that, since he can't exactly admit he knows about her illness because he regressed or that his system lets him copy skills. Then she leans in close and gives the third reason for wanting him in the guild. Even as a middle schooler, he didn't flinch in front of the Lotus leader, and she likes that courage. In his past life, Lotus fell apart soon after her death. Since she's still alive now, he figures joining them could help him grow fast. Still, he wonders how a contract would even work since he's underage, and signing minors is illegal. Smiling, she reminds him about priority negotiation rights. Jae-hyun does know what that is. It's a guild privilege that lets them support a raider trainee before they become an adult. Then, once that trainee comes of age, the guild gets the first chance to sign them before anyone else. Jae-hyun never imagined he'd benefit from something like this, especially after even the worst guilds rejected him in the past. Clearly, she's taken a liking to him. Jae-hyun straightens up and says he'll heal her now. Her offer is already tempting, but he decides to finish the treatment before giving his final answer. As he stands over her, the manager still looks uneasy. He no longer doubts Jae-hyun's power, but he's worried the boy might use something dangerous or cursed, especially since even the best doctors couldn't cure her. A moment later, she feels the magic take effect and notices the change inside her body. The manager is left speechless. He quickly bows to Jae-hyun and sincerely apologizes for doubting him. Jae-hyun brushes it off, saying it was normal to doubt a kid's words, but the manager keeps apologizing for how rude he was before. Jae-hyun tells the lady it's done, and she can move freely now. The moment she stands, she heads to the window and releases her magic. Tears fill her eyes when she realizes all her symptoms are gone. She thanks him for the miracle and asks if healing her will cost him anything, but his copied version has no penalty. Jae-hyun just smiles and says she can repay him when the time comes, and she gladly agrees. Then she hands him her card and tells him to think over her offer. She promises she'll do everything she can to make it worth his while. Jae-hyun then says there's one more thing he wants. He had one request. The next day, the manager takes him to a low-level Lotus Guild dungeon. He's here to train and raise his skills so he can stand out at Mills Academy. The guild prepares everything he needs, even lending him extra gear normally used by members. Still, the manager warns that going in alone is dangerous and asks why he wants to solo it. Jae-hyun only says he wants to grind. Just in case, the manager gives him a warp stone. If it breaks, it'll send him right back outside the gate. It's a small thank you for helping the director, and Jae-hyun gladly takes it. Then he heads inside. The moment he enters, he can tell it's only an E-rank dungeon, nothing serious. Even so, the manager tells him to get out fast if anything feels wrong. Jae-hyun nods, but deeper in, hands suddenly clamp over his mouth, and the system says he's entered Helheim's Field of the Dead. The story then cuts to director Yoo Soo-hyun's office. She's thinking about Jae-hyun, worried because even an E-rank gate is hard for a rookie to clear alone. Still, she knows this kid isn't ordinary. He picked that gate for a reason, so she decides to wait and see. Then someone knocks, and after getting permission, a woman steps in. The director asks for the update she requested, and the woman hands over Jae-hyun's file. As she reads, she's stunned to see he wants to become a martial artist despite his huge talent for magic. The room goes quiet. Even the employee who brought the report can't explain it. All she can say is the records are correct unless there's some machine error. His magic aptitude is listed at 97. Not long after, the director calls Manager Appa and tells him to contact her the second Jae-hyun leaves the dungeon. She wants to see his ability herself. Meanwhile, Jae-hyun drops into the strange place called the Field of the Dead and slams hard into the ground. Looking around, he realizes it's a graveyard and struggles back to his feet, coughing hard. Before he can figure anything out, an undead archer appears and fires at him. He reacts too late and gets cut across the face. Another monster shows up to finish him off. Annoyed, Jae-hyun wonders if the attack has paralysis poison and quickly heals himself with sacrifice. Then more zombies appear, and black souls gather above him from every side. They rush him and fire non-stop, but this time Jae-hyun catches an arrow and crushes in his hand, fed up with their attacks. Elsewhere, Kim Yoo-young stares at the autograph she got from the director, still irritated that Jae-hyun left her alone, even though he knows she gets lost easily. His recent behavior keeps bothering her. He used to hate attention, but now he's suddenly willing to go around with her. He also never used to ditch her, yet this time he left her by herself, and now he's switching to magic class, even though he always wanted martial arts. She can't understand it, because he's normally careful and never acts without a reason. So she starts texting him again, scolding him for leaving her alone that day. Back in the dungeon, Jae-hyun goes pale when ghosts appear right in front of him. Worse, they're much more organized than normal monsters. He decides to use a staff made by a Lotus Guild blacksmith. This dungeon, Helheimer, is the land of the dead ruled by Hel, Loki's daughter. It's tied to the worlds of Norse myth, lands of ice, fire, giants, elves, dark elves, and the Vanir gods. Helheimer is one of the darkest and coldest places among them, a brutal spot for beginners. Even so, Jae-hyun is excited to test himself. He uses goddess Nora's sacrifice skill. When cast on dead monsters, it turns into the wide area attack Judgment of Light. A monster lunges at him, but Jae-hyun smacks it away with the staff, sending it flying. Then he loads up Blitz Fire and blows it apart. That kill gives him 70 XP for defeating the Death Wraith, and he keeps chaining attacks. With each monster he drops, his grin grows as the XP keeps coming. Next, he jumps at another undead archer and cracks it in the head. The hit lands, but his staff snaps in half, though the monster still goes down. Seeing the broken weapon, he turns pale. He realizes he was fighting like a brawler, not a mage, and just ruined his weapon. So, he stops messing around and uses sacrifice again. Holy Judgment of Light drops onto the monsters and burns them to ash. After collecting the XP, he finally takes a breath. He heals himself to recover mana and feels lucky to still be alive. The fight taught him not to overrate himself. Judgment saved him this time, but next time might be different. For now, he decides to leave, only to realize he has no idea how to get out. So, he reaches for the warp stone. Before he can use it, a terrifying wave of mana rises behind him. He turns, but sees nothing. Then something rushes in, and suddenly his throat is being crushed. He lifts his broken staff and stabs it into his own thigh. He hurts himself on purpose just to avoid screaming and attracting more enemies. Only then does the system reveal the monster behind him, the dungeon boss, Nightshade. The level gap is overwhelming, and the system practically begs him to escape immediately. He reaches for the warp stone, but the boss attacks from behind and knocks it from his hand. Min-jun slams into a wall and coughs up blood as his HP crashes. The system tells him to use a healing item at once. He doesn't get the chance because the monster is already in front of him and attacks again. Just when he thinks it's over, the monster freezes in place and Min-jun can only stare. Then a woman's voice echoes through the cave. She looks almost like a goddess and orders the monster not to hurt him, saying she brought him here as an honored guest. This half-demon, half-angelic elf tells him he is meant to be the adversary. Min-jun has no idea who she is. She says she expected him to crush this monster with ease, but now sees he's only a kid with average mana and ability. She can't understand why Loki chose someone like him to oppose the mighty Aesir. Meanwhile, Min-jun is barely staying awake as blood keeps pouring out. He knows he can't die here, not after getting a second chance. Seeing that resolve, the woman admits he is spirit, but says he's still far too weak for his role. She starts choking him and warns that if he doesn't grow stronger soon, she'll kill him herself. Still, because he matters to them, she decides to spare him once. She tells him to become much stronger and defeat Nightshade easily. If he does, she'll reward him, but he has to do it fast. A main quest appears, Hell's Trials, with a mission to kill Nightshade within 2 months. The mysterious woman is Hel herself, Loki's daughter. If he clears the quest, she'll grant him a gift. If he fails, he dies. As eerie hands drag him into the dark, everything fades away. Then the blonde goddess from his regression appears again, still speaking to him in that strange language. A moment later, he wakes up in the real world. As he gets up, he realizes all his injuries are completely gone. When he checks his status window, the same quest is still there, proving that what happened was real. That means the woman he met truly was Hel, ruler of Helheim. He still doesn't understand this adversary stuff, though the word feels familiar from when he first got the Norder system. With so many questions left, like why he regressed and what this role really means, he knows one thing. He needs to get stronger fast. If Hel was serious, the second he stops improving, she'll kill him. Still, he lets out a small laugh. At least life won't be boring. But the road ahead is long. He still doesn't know how to fight like a mage, and he doesn't even have basic spells for weak enemies. Then he checks his phone and sees a call from the director. He says he'll come by tomorrow and is ready to sign the contract. The next day, Min-jun arrives at the Lotus Flower Guild. A manager escorts him inside, and as they walk, he quickly sees why they're treating him so well. His mage aptitude is 97. When they reach the office, he lights up after spotting the director. She carries herself with calm confidence, and he can't help noticing it. The two greet each other warmly. She goes over the contract perks, and Min-jun is honestly impressed. The guild will cover living costs, replace any broken B-rank items for free, and pay him a big share based on his raid results. Those benefits usually go to elite A-rank raiders. Before signing, though, he says he has one condition. The director tells him to go ahead. He explains that he only switched from martial arts to magic a month ago, so he's still new to it. Because of that, he wants her to train him personally. The manager is shocked by how boldly he says it to someone as important as the director. Still, Min-jun asks if she'll accept that before he signs the priority contract with Lotus. She laughs at the unusual request and agrees. He thanks her, and she teases that she's already expecting a lot from him. Then she asks him to show his talent first. If he's ready. He expected this from the start, since it's the real reason the guild wants him. So he asks what he needs to do. The director snaps her fingers, and blue mana forms behind her into a mana cube. She tells him to endure it. Min-jun is stunned the moment he sees it. She reminds him that if he's really gifted, he should at least handle something like this before joining her guild. A mana cube is a test used by B-rank mages and above to measure mana sensitivity. Very few awakened mages can stand it. So, for someone like him, this should be way too much. He asks if she's trying to scare him off. She says no. Even if he fails, the contract still stands. With no real way to refuse, he steps forward anyway. The director signals the manager to get things ready. The manager worries because even active mage raiders struggle with the cube, but the director insists Min-jun isn't ordinary and should be tested. At last, the manager activates the cube. As it starts working, Min-jun pauses, feeling the pressure pouring off it. The director urges him on, and he finally steps inside. Once he's in the mana cube, the manager gets even more nervous, seeing only a young kid trapped in there. But the director calmly says he'll be fine. Her instincts tell her he won't fail. Inside, Min-jun feels like he's floating in a huge sea of mana. To his surprise, he can breathe just fine, which eases his fears since too much dense mana can make someone sick or even kill them. He remembers the only way out is to find the single door linked to the outside world among countless whirlpools. So, he focuses and starts searching for an escape. Then he feels something strange. A small crystal hidden away, pulsing with enormous magic like the whole mana sea, is packed inside it. Outside, the manager keeps panicking while the director only smiles. The manager nervously asks how long this test usually takes. The director says the fastest clear ever was 40 minutes. Hearing that, the manager mutters that Min-jun will either die or break the world record. The director says she expects the second one. Then both of them freeze when they see the crystal inside the cube starting to crack. The manager checks the time in shock. Only 10 minutes have passed. While they try to figure out what's happening, Min-jun senses the crystal's huge power and grins. He decides breaking it might be the way out, swims toward the stone, grabs it tight in his hand, and crushes it in one move. Cracks spread all around him, and a system message says he gained the passive skill crystal of mana operation. A moment later, the mana cube collapses, leaving both women stunned and terrified. Even S-rank players usually need about an hour for this test, but Min-jun cleared it in just 26 minutes, beating the old record of 36 minutes set by the EU genius mage Camilla. The manager rushes over, grabs his hand, and praises him excitedly. The director joins in, too, but she really wants to know how he ended the cube so fast. He tells her he found a crystal inside and broke it. That shocks her because the crystal holds all the mana in the cube and almost no one can even find it, let alone destroy it. If he shattered it, his mana capacity may be greater than the cube itself. She bursts with excitement and promises to help him become the greatest mage in the world. The story then cuts back to Kim Yoo-jun, who's upset because Min-jun is still late. His mother agrees, adding that he isn't answering his phone either. Then a flashy Rolls-Royce pulls up and catches both their eyes. They're stunned when Min-jun steps out of it. Neither of them can believe he showed up in a car like that. He spots them right away and waves with a smile. His mother worries he got mixed up in something shady, while Kim Yoo-jun is mad that he looks so relaxed. Once they're inside, she immediately demands answers, starting with why he switched to the magic class. He casually says martial arts wasn't working for him anymore, and he's already finished the paperwork to change tracks. She keeps pressing him for a real reason, but he turns the question around and asks why she's here. Then he asks if her parents are at work. She nods and says that's why she's staying over with his mom's permission. Her parents work at a monster processing plant that ships materials overseas. So, when they're gone, she often stays here since Min-jun's mother is close with him. After that, he asks Kim Yoo-jun to teach him magic theory now that he's in the magic class. She immediately asks what she'll get out of it. With a sigh, he asks what she wants. She says she hasn't decided yet, but after thinking it over, she says he has to grant her one wish. He agrees, but only if she uses that wish within a year. She accepts, though she's clearly annoyed, while he figures she'll probably forget all about it before the year is up. When he jokingly asks what kind of wish she might pick, she snaps and tells him to shut up. That only makes her even madder as she clutches the pillow in frustration. As their teasing keeps going, his mother calls them to dinner, but they ignore her and keep roughhousing with pillows. Seeing how they act around each other, it wouldn't be shocking if her wish turned out to be something like telling him to marry her. Elsewhere, ravens swarm through a forest while a man in black cuts down monsters with ease using his sword. This is Min-jun's father, Min-shong. Oh wait, an armored man praises him for clearing the dungeon so easily. He then asks Min-shong to join his guild, but Min-jun's father refuses and says he'd rather stay solo. The armored man keeps begging, promising status and respect from the Scarlet Guild, but the man in black only mocks his stubbornness. Then Min-shong suddenly summons strange chains and starts talking about how greedy humans are. A moment later, he disappears, leaving the armored man confused. After that eerie meeting, the story returns to the director as she begins Min-jun's first lesson in magic. The director starts his first class without wasting time. She goes straight into sparring and tells him to attack her. He hesitates, but since he can't refuse, he exhales slowly and raises his guard, making sure not to leave an opening. Using what he knows from martial arts, he throws a punch at her, expecting her to react. She just smiles, and the force of the hit kicks up a huge cloud of dust. When it clears, Min-jun sees that she caught his punch with no effort at all. That alone is enough to terrify him. She smiles like it's nothing, and he quickly jumps back to make space. He had looked down on her because she's a healer, but now he's sure she has the power of an S-rank raider. After stopping his attack, she points out the flaws in his movement. His stance and habits are still those of a martial artist, and mages don't fight by rushing him like that. Then she asks if he knows the difference between martial arts and magic. He says martial arts is for close combat with weapons and direct attacks, while magic is used from farther away. She agrees and explains that mages weaken enemies at range, then martial artists finish them up close. To prove it, she tells him she'll attack next, so we can learn what mage combat really looks like. If he gets hurt, she can heal him. He's nervous, but he braces himself. Mana gathers at her fingertip, and she fires a sharp beam. He barely rolls out of the way before she tells him strike back. He activates his blitz chain and fires lightning arrows straight at her, setting off a huge explosion on impact. She comes out of the blast completely fine, surprised by his air-rank skill. She warns him that power means nothing if it misses. Then she fires an arrow back at him. It's aimed straight for his face, and he panics. He fails to dodge and gets hit head-on. Even beaten all over, he still doesn't fall. That toughness catches her attention. Then she stops holding back and sends a storm of blue lightning bolts at him. This time he instantly uses Absolute Calculator, and her magic breaks apart. She's stunned. He reversed her spell and erased it almost at once. Clearly impressed again, she asks what else he's hiding. Jae-hoo just tells her to see for herself. Right after that, the ground in front of her crackles with power. The attack lands, though she blocks it with one hand. Even so, the impact makes her hand shake. She can't believe he cast something that fast. Jae-hoo follows up with a rain of arrows, but she throws up a shield and blocks them all. Now she starts wondering how he's using magic without any chant at all. Skilled mages can shorten chants for weak spells, but his attacks are still strong, so this makes no sense to her. Meanwhile, he's nearly out of mana and can barely keep going, so he blurts out that she's a total monster. With a smug grin, she walks over and calls him an interesting kid with a lot of promise, but also very inexperienced. Then she catches him off guard and drops him to the ground in an instant. He has no idea what she even did. She says it's all thanks to years of experience. Looking over his abilities, she praises both his close combat and how smoothly he casts magic. His reverse calculation trick impresses her, too, and she thinks he could build a fighting style no one else has. So she declares that from now on she'll train him herself and officially becomes his teacher. Apparently, he's the first person she's ever accepted as a student. Later, Jae-hoo and Shin sit there quietly, deep in thought. His friend snaps him out of it with an annoyed look, and he clicks his tongue, saying he is listening. She's been eating ice cream the whole time, paid for by Jae-hoo and as her lesson fee. When he asks if she isn't full yet, she says she could eat this all day and tells him to pay attention. As her lesson goes on, a system window pops up. His magic knowledge increases, and his magic efficiency rises by 5. He's getting sick of those notifications. Every time he learns something, they pop up again, like the system is forcing him to keep growing. Even Lady Kim thinks his progress is strange. He's learned in 2 days what would take most people 2 months, but he brushes it off, saying that's no different from how she can memorize forms after one look. That only annoys her more, and she demands he call her teacher. Part of her irritation comes from how fast he's improving, even though she spent far longer studying magic. At this rate, she thinks he might pass her before long. With a sigh, he finally calls her teacher and says of course he's learning fast. He has talent for magic. Still, the real reason he's pushing so hard is simple. He doesn't want to get crushed by hell. She then brings up how shocked she was when he once said he wanted to go into martial arts. Now she actually yells at him, asking why he ever thought about giving up magic when it suits him so well. While Yeung and Jae-hoo keep studying, he suddenly sees a man's face, a vision tied to an event from his past life. Yeung pulls him back by asking if he's also training for the practical exam on his own, and he says another teacher is helping with that part. Still, he keeps wondering what that vision was and whether he only imagined it. At the same time, he remembers Hell gave him just 2 months to defeat Nightshade, so he forces the thought away. This isn't the time to lose focus. Instead, he turns to something more useful, the pill he's developing, hoping it can help raiders around the world and help him break past his current limit, too. At the Lotus Guild Training Center, Manager Park Sung-jae watches the raiders train and points out their mistakes. When he notices Guild Master Seonjayam Goryeon, he comments that the new trainees are pretty solid and their average rank has nearly improved from last year. But then he realizes she wasn't listening. Once she notices, Seonjayam Goryeon apologizes. He teases her, saying she must be thinking about Jae-hoo, and she admits he's right. Then the manager brings up how several raiders already tried to learn the technique she wants to teach Jae-hoo, and every one of them failed. Seonjayam reminds him that he saw Jae-hoo's unusual talent, too. If someone called him a veteran, it would be believable. He doesn't waste a single movement. She's convinced that if another S-rank magician appears in the future, it'll be Jae-hoo. Right now, she's still the country's only S-rank magician, but as a healer, her battle impact is limited. If Jae-hoo and Shin suddenly rises like a comet, the entire magic world will be shaken. Sometime later, Jae-hoo works on a mana enhancement pill. Just like the name says, it permanently raises the mana of the awakened person who takes it, making it something every magician would want. But the mixture fails again, and he angrily throws the spoon away. By now, he's already burned through 3 full sets of ingredients. If this keeps up, all his money is going to disappear. In November 2020, nobody knows how to make this pill yet. It won't be invented for another 5 years. Before coming back to the past, Jae-hoo saw the recipe released by a world-class alchemist. When that alchemist shared it, he said he hoped the pill would help raiders everywhere. Jae-hoo realizes brute force won't solve this, so he comes up with a better idea. Find Lee Jae-sang, the man who will invent the pill 5 years from now. Even if the pill still fails, making a connection with him would be worth it. Since Jae-sang is currently a first-year student at Mills Academy, Jae-hoo heads there to meet him. While he's gone, Yeung comes to visit, opens the door, and finds a pot that looks downright cursed along with a filthy sink. The place is such a disaster that she wonders if something terrible happened and even thinks about calling the police. Holding a frying pan like a weapon, she carefully looks around the wrecked house. Back when Yggdrasil first appeared and monsters began pouring out, a few people rose to the top faster than anyone else. One of them was Lee Jae-shin, known as Quickblade. After the first Awakened disappeared without a trace, Lee Jae-shin stepped up as Korea's first S-rank raider, and Lee Jae-sang, the person Jae-hoo is going to meet, is his youngest son. When Jae-hoo reaches the transport building, the attendant asks where he wants to go, and he requests a portal to Taegu. Taegu is currently abandoned because of the monster outbreak. It's a city overrun from every side, where stepping inside means risking your life right away. After getting close to Mills Academy in Taegu, he walks the rest of the way to the main gate. Once inside, he starts wondering where to find Jae-sang. Jae-sang is in the combat department, but he lacks talent and hates fighting, so there's almost no chance he'd be using the combat facilities. Because of that, Jae-hoo decides to check the classrooms first. As he moves ahead, he spots a crowd and goes over to see what's happening. When he pushes through, Jae-sang gets thrown back by an attack and crashes right into him. Jae-hoo helps him up, and though the kid apologizes for slamming into him, Jae-hoo ignores that. His eyes go straight to Jae-sang's opponent, who demands to know who he is and what business he has with Jae-sang, calling him a stutterer. Before Jae-hoo can answer, the bully puts a hand on his back and asks if he's the stutterer's brother, since they look nothing alike. Jae-hoo doesn't bother answering him. The bully says they're in the middle of something important and tells him to wait outside unless he wants trouble. Before he can finish, Jae-hoo smacks his hand away. Then he tells Jae-sang to head to the nurse's office and asks if he can walk. Jae-sang only stares at him. Confused, annoyed, the bully steps in, grabs Jae-hoo by the collar, calls him a bastard, and asks if he has a death wish. Jae-hoo notes this is the second time someone has grabbed his collar lately, and he really doesn't get why people keep doing that. He remembers Yu Young's lesson. First, picture the spell clearly, then calculate the formula and build it, and finally cast it. Remembering Seon Jaehyun's lesson, Jae-hoo imagines a beam of light shooting out like an arrow. Right away, the system says Holy Arrow has activated. With just a finger point, he fires the spell into the big guy's chest and sends him flying. Spit flies from the guy's mouth, too. He cries out in pain. Jae-sang stares in shock. This stranger cast magic without a chant. The other students are just as stunned. They can't believe he cast so easily or that one holy arrow snapped the arm of a future warrior. Some start saying maybe the big guy was weaker than he acted. That ticks him off. If this keeps up, his image is finished. So he swears he won't let Jae-hoo walk away untouched. Clutching his broken arm, he summons a sword. Seeing that, Jae-sang warns Jae-hoo, but the bully is already swinging for him. As the blade rushes toward Jae-hoo's face, he recalls Seon teaching him to spread mana evenly around his body to form a barrier that makes attacks bounce away. He activates mana barrier at once, and the huge sword rebounds like it hit rubber, flying out of range. Fear flashes across the bully's face, but before he can react, Jae-hoo grabs him by the face and asks if he's finished. The guy tries to spit out an insult, but Jae-hoo cuts him off with a holy arrow to the face. The blast sends him backward and breaks his nose. He slams on the floor with a heavy thud, and Jae-hoo can only watch in awe, wondering who this guy really is. When Jae-hoo looks his way, Jae-sang squeals and flinches, but Jae-hoo just walks past him to the unconscious bully, still covered in smoke. Crouching beside him, Jae-hoo is a little surprised by how hard he hit him. Then he pulls out a potion. He hates wasting the one he bought on this guy, but there isn't much choice, so he pours it over the bully's injuries. The man's face heals right away, and the potion works even better than Jae-hoo expected. After that, he turns to the still shaken Jae-sang and says they should head to the nurse's office. On the way there, Jae-hoo stops once they're somewhere private. Jae-hoo Shin looks at him, confused, already guessing Jae-hoo came because he knows who he is. After gathering his nerve, he asks if his father sent him. Jae-hoo says no and asks why he'd even know his father. Jae-hoo Shin clearly doesn't believe that, then asks what he really wants. Jae-hoo says he needs a favor. The moment he mentions making a certain pill, Jae-hoo panics and says he can't make anything like that. Jae-hoo frowns and reminds him he's skilled at alchemy. Pulling out the potion he used earlier, he asks if Jae-hoo wasn't the one who sold it on the black market. That leaves the kid stunned. How did he find out? There should have been no way to trace him through the black market. Jae-hoo Bae-yin tell exactly what he's thinking, and honestly he's right. The black market hides every user's identity, items, prices, buyers. All of it goes through the Easter system, so it's supposed to be secure. Still, the black market works fine with the Nornir system Zhao Bae-yin has, which let him buy the potion and made finding Zhao Bae-yin. Zhao Bae-yin tells him he's a terrible liar. He says he gets why he'd hide it, but there's no time. Zhao Bae-yin Sheng thinks back to listing those potions online and wonders if selling them there was a huge mistake. He only did it to make some money. If his father finds out, he's dead. So he bows and begs Zhao Bae-yin not to tell anyone. Zhao Bae-yin explains he isn't trying to threaten him. He just needs a great alchemist to help make the elixir he wants. After thinking it over, Zhao Bae-yin Qian Sang-jin asks who he really is. Zhao Bae-yin says he's a prospective student at Millis Academy and politely calls him senior. Soon the two sit down, and though still nervous, Zhao Bae-yin Qian sells one calls in the Barkamol. Zhao Bae-yin Qian says it's a mana enhancement pill, one that permanently raises a raider's mana. Zhao Bae-yin jumps up shocked, asking if that's even possible. Zhao Bae-yin says it is. Now fully interested, Zhao Bae-yin jumps up, starts thinking fast, wondering what ingredients could cause that effect. As he lists possible materials, Zhao Bae-yin notices his whole vibe has changed, and he's not even stuttering anymore. He also guesses most of the ingredients just from hearing the effect, proving how gifted he is. That makes Zhao Bae-yin even more sure he has to bring him over to his side. In the end, Jae-song stops and says Jae-hein should probably ask another alchemist, since the elixir is so important. Jae-hein refuses. He wants Jae-song specifically and promises to provide whatever is needed. Sure, other alchemists might make it if they had the recipe, but the one with truly unmatched talent is Lee Jae-song. So he asks one more time if he'll do this for him. This time, Jae-song agrees. Even so, He warns that he might fail, and Jae-hein says that's fine. Jae-song doesn't get it. Jae-hein would be the one losing out. Jae-hein says he's making this investment because he believes in his talent, and sometimes investments fail. Then he says he looks forward to working with him. Tears fill Jae-song's eyes. No one has ever believed in him like this before. Seeing that, Jae-hein is glad he managed to reach him. The next morning, alone in his room, Jae-song thinks back on what happened the night before and wonders if anyone has ever trusted him this much. He was timid, less gifted than his siblings, and lost his mother young. So he ended up alone and never earned his father's approval. That's why hearing someone say failure was okay feels so strange. For the first time, someone placed real trust in him, and it hits him so deeply that he starts crying. Meanwhile, Jae-hein's main quest is still hanging over him. Beat Nightshade in Hell's trial before time runs out and earn Hell's recognition. The reward is Hell's gift, and if he fails, he dies. At this point, he has only 10 days and 23 hours left. Later, Jae-hein heads to the training center to spar with Sung-gun, and he avoids her blue lightning attacks. As he closes the distance, more blasts come at him, but he blocks them with a shield. He answers with Holy Arrow, yet she's already protected by a magic barrier. Still, she spots a crack in it, and that shocks her. Jae-hein has gotten strong fast. When the smoke clears, they stare each other down like gunslingers waiting to move first until yellow lightning wraps around Jae-hein's body as he activates Blitz Chain. Sung-gun looks ready to meet him head-on. Just as they're about to clash, the manager steps in and tells them to stop. Their time is up, and they've both trained enough for today. He's stunned because their spar wrecked a hull built from arc metal, a material that takes huge strength to make. If he hadn't interrupted, the whole place would have been destroyed. While they rest, Sung-gun tells him his growth is unbelievable. He can use more spells now, and his physical strength has risen a ton. Then she asks if he's studying theory on his own, and Jae-hein says a friend is teaching him. That makes Sung-gun smile. She says it's better than she hoped, since she couldn't help much with theory, and adds that he must have a smart friend. Jae-hein awkwardly agrees she is, though he knows Yoon-jong's personality is the real problem. Before they part, Sung-gun reminds him he wanted to raid a dungeon again. He says he wants to test how much stronger he's gotten. She figures the E-rank dungeon he entered before should be easy for him now, and tells him to do his best. The problem is, it wasn't an E-rank dungeon at all. It was a C-rank one, where he met Hell and Nightshade. He wonders if he can beat a C-rank boss alone, but pushes the doubt aside. He's prepared as much as he can, so all that's left is the fight. Later, Jae-ho-hyun goes to see Jae-song, who greets him with a pill he worked hard to make. Jae-ho-hyun takes the mana enhancement pill, and his magic stat jumps by 15. The effect is so good, it leaves him stunned. Alchemy is a deep and difficult field. Even the same recipe can turn out very differently, depending on the alchemist. If Jae-ho-hyun had gone to someone else, he probably wouldn't have gotten a pill worth even magic. Smiling, he reminds Jae-song once again that he's truly talented. Jae-song says he only pulled it off because he trusted Jae-hyun, then thanks him. After that, Jae-hyun heads out, sure he'll beat Nightshade tomorrow. At the same time, Hell talks with her dragon Garmer, and says they may have a very interesting guest today. He has 9 days and 22 hours left to clear the dungeon. Jae-ho-hyun returns to the dungeon gate. There, he receives the full probationary Valkyrie set. It comes with a passive skill called Mana Pondering. Not long after, he steps inside the dungeon. The portal system tells him he's being sent to Helheim, the land of the dead. That's because of the Nornir system he carries. He drops through the portal and lands in the land of the dead. If he beats Nightshade, he'll get to meet Hell again. Then a voice behind him calls him an enemy and brings up Loki in Nornir. A monster follows that up by firing arrows at him. Jae-ho-hyun blocks them with a magic barrier. When he turns around, he sees more monsters crawling up from the ground. That reminds him of what Sung-gun said she wanted to teach him, the fighting style of a battle mage. Warriors call them swordsmen. It's a mix of magic and close combat. So far, though, no one has truly made it work. As Jae-ho-hyun spins around and fires holy arrows at the monsters behind him, he thinks about why it's weaker than a pure mage at range and worse than a warrior up close. While smashing one monster into the ground, he realizes the style is stuck in the middle, great at neither role. Still, Sung-gun seems sure it'll be different for him. Before long, he starts cutting the monsters down. Outside, Manager Sung-jae is guarding the dungeon entrance when he senses someone nearby and remembers no one else was supposed to come. He instantly draws his sword as a red car speeds toward him. Once it stops, a woman steps out, calls him senior, and says finding him wasn't easy. Sung-jae realizes it's an old classmate, Yoon-jo. He puts his sword away and asks why she's here and what happened with her guild. She says she's working too and thought she might run into him while handling guild business. She even checked the Yoon-jo guild first but he wasn't there. Sung Jae thinks that's nonsense, especially since Yoon-jo hasn't contacted him once since college. He says it's nice seeing her again, but no, she didn't come all the way out here just for that. As she steps closer, Yoon-jo asks if he's managing this dungeon, and he shuts it down, saying that's none of an outsider's business. She keeps going anyway, pointing out that dungeon management usually isn't his job, and asking if he got demoted. When he stays silent, she asks if the rumor about Guild Master Sung-gun being sick is true. That makes Sung Jae's expression turn dark. He says it's obviously just a rumor, then demands to know where she heard it. Yoon-ju says there are ears everywhere, and the Curator Guild has plenty of them. Sung Jae takes that to mean they have spies inside his guild, so he thanks her for the warning and says he'll handle it. Growing impatient, he asks if she's done, since he needs to get back and clean things up. Then she asks if he knows a kid named Min Jae-yoon. That immediately puts Sung Jae on alert. Yoon-ju says the boy has been visiting Yeonhwa Guild and meeting Guild Master Yu Sung-gun a lot, so she wants to know why. Sung Jae, confused but guarded, tells her that's none of an outsider's business either. Yoon-ju lets out a sigh and turns to leave, saying she never expected him to tell her anything. He's always been this stiff. Still, she came all this way because she has to at least look like she's earning her pay at the guild. Then she gets back in her car and drives off. Inside the dungeon, Jae-yoon sits on a pile of monster corpses. Soon the boss Nightshade appears, and Jae-yoon greets it like an old rival. Nightshade burns with a creepy red glow. It lunges at him, and Jae-yoon jumps up while aiming holy arrows at it. In midair, he fires into its eyes and mouth, throwing it off for a moment before landing again. But the monster doesn't look hurt and lowers its hand from its face, revealing those fiery red eyes. Then it blasts energy at him. Jae-yoon reads the attack paths, steps through the openings, and dodges cleanly. When he gets right in front of it, Nightshade unleashes another wave of destructive energy, and he still avoids it. Jae-yoon taunts it, asking if it's getting annoyed now that things aren't going its way. Then he activates Blitz Chain and sends the chains at Nightshade. The monster knocks the chain's anchor aside, but Jae-yoon redirects it and wraps the chain around its waist. Even with the monster thrashing hard, he can tell this still won't be enough to pin it down. So he rains down holy arrows and targets its eyes. That finally hurts. Blood starts pouring out, but Nightshade still refuses to fall. It keeps struggling until it snaps free from the lightning chains. Then the system warns Jae-yoon that the boss has entered a berserk state. Its strength jumps by 1.5 times, and its dexterity rises too. As if that weren't bad enough, the system says he's been marked with the stigma of death. If he doesn't remove it within 10 minutes, he'll die instantly. The only way to clear it is by defeating Nightshade. Zhao Bei-yun has never heard of sudden death penalty, and the warning rattles him. Then, strangely, the system says his absolute calculation skill, universal derivation, has activated. Still trying to make sense of it, Zhao Bei-yun figures hell must be involved. He calls out, asking how she can interfere like this. Instead of answering, the system just shows the countdown, already 30 seconds down. With the stigma on him, Zhao Yun rushes the berserk monster, only to freeze when Nightshade starts running away. He quickly fires a holy arrow at its face, blowing a hole through it before it gets far. The timer keeps ticking. 8 minutes and 32 seconds remain. Nightshade actually smiles like it knows it wins if the fight drags on. So Jae-yoon decides to use a wide-range skill it can't dodge, but just as he starts casting, Nightshade catches him with its gaze and breaks his focus. The system tells him he failed to resist, and now he has a fear debuff that weakens him for a while. Before he can process it, Nightshade slams into him. Right after the hit, the system says the fear debuff is gone, but Jae-yoon is coughing up blood. Even so, he steadies himself and stays standing. Now the death penalty timer is down to 7 minutes and 11 seconds. Jaehan expects the monster to use that same control move again, but when it doesn't, he figures it may not be able to spam a spell like that. Still, if he tries casting Light's Judgment and Nightshade interrupts him, he'll waste his mana and be left helpless. He needs another plan. Then he remembers the earlier hit to Nightshade's eye. Its vision should be worse now. He uses Wind Boost first to block what it can still see. Once the wind cloud clears, Jaehan is already holding light magic in his hand, exactly as planned. He mocks Nightshade for thinking he'd charge him blindly, and calls it stupid as he activates Flash Bomb. The skill goes off in a burst of blinding light that floods the whole area while he sends multiple lightning chains at Nightshade. In the middle of it all, Jaehan realizes he finally trapped the bastard. The monster screams as the blast burns through it. Then Jaehan suddenly notices some of the undead he fought earlier behind him. He activates Sacrifice, and the system announces that Sacrifice has changed into an attack skill, letting him use Light's Judgment with only 3 minutes and 46 seconds left. He calls down blasts of light from the sky across the battlefield. In the chaos, the timer keeps dropping until only 10 seconds remain. At 6 seconds, Jaehan stares at Nightshade's body falling apart and realizes he actually did it. When the countdown reaches 3 seconds, the system announces that the dungeon boss has been defeated and grants him the title 1 who has overcome the first trial. Watching the whole thing, Hell says there really was a reason Jaehan was chosen. She reaches out and tells him to come to her temple. Once Nightshade dies, the stigma of death vanishes and Jaehan gets experience points, a crafting material called Nightshade's Core, and an equipment item named Shadow Armor. The system also tells him he gained 3 levels and earned the title the one who has overcome the first trial. After checking his qualifications, the system says Hell is summoning him to her temple. A moment later, he's transported in front of a massive gate leading into Hell's temple. At the entrance, a huge monster suddenly charges out of the dark at him. Jaehan jumps back in fear, but Hell calls the beast Garmer and tells it to guide their guest inside. Jaehan follows Garmer into the temple. Once inside, he calls out to Hell. Hell says she didn't expect him to actually make it. Then she congratulates him for clearing her trial and calls him the child born to oppose fate. Confused, Jaehan asks why she gave him the Nornir system and put him through all of this. Hell just smiles back at him, then says he needs to grow into the adversary. Still lost, Jaehan asks why he was chosen for that role, and she says it was decided from the moment he was born. He's fated to stand against the great Aesir and one day kill Odin. According to Hell, that's what Loki and the others want from him. When Jaehan says none of this makes sense, Hell tells him he doesn't need to understand yet. They never expected him to from the start. That vague answer only makes him angrier. So she puts a finger to his lips and says he must feel cheated, like the gods are trying to control his life. Leaning in close, she reminds him this isn't just about the gods opposing the Aesir. As she speaks, Hell shoves him into a portal behind him and says the world is heading for ruin while Odin wants everything under his rule. To stop that, they need the power of the prophesied adversary. Falling through the portal, Jaehan protests that he still has more questions. Hell only tells him to become stronger. She'll be waiting for the day they meet again. After Jaehan is sent away, Hell turns to someone nearby and asks how long he plans to keep watching since she never invited him. Soon after, Jaehan drops back into the real world and grumbles because he's still got no clear answers. While he's sulking, the system announces that he's received Hell's gift, a passive skill called Hell's Blessing, which cancels all abnormal status effects on him. Meanwhile, the old man spying on Hell apologizes for intruding. He says he couldn't stay away after hearing she was meeting the boy, then asks what she thought of him. Hell says it's too early to judge, especially since the adversary has only just begun. Still, she admits his growth exceeded her expectations. Even with the stigma she placed on him, he still won and reached her in the end, which she calls a welcome mistake on her part. The old man is glad to hear the boy is doing well. Hell then asks what he really wants, calling him Mimir. Mimir pretends not to know what she means, but Hell calls out his act. He tells her to relax and admits he can't fool her after all. Hell then says the adversary's left eye is clearly Odin's eye from the Well of Wisdom. She's sure Mimir and Loki are hiding something from her. Mimir says he'd like to explain, but it's still too soon and Hell agrees to wait. Even so, she says she can't just sit around. When Mimir asks what she's planning, Hell says the adversary is still too inexperienced, and the prophecy says countless hardships are waiting for him, so he needs a guide. About 7 days before admission to Milla's academy, Jaehan goes shopping with a woman for supplies. She notices he seems off and asks if something's bothering him, but he says it's nothing, so she keeps leading him through the rest of the list. Even so, he can't stop thinking about everything he went through, only to come back with even more questions. At least he did get Hell's Blessing and an X-rank skill. He already has other EX-rank skills, too. One is one watched by the gods, which speeds up his growth with divine blessings. Another is Absolute Eye of God, which breaks through illusions and reveals the truth, but X-rank is something Jehu never saw in the Aesir system before. It stands for extraordinary and seems to exist outside that system's normal rules. When he thinks about why the gods opposing the Aesir gave him these powers to kill Odin, the pressure hits him all over again. He snapped out of it when he sees the woman with him paying 300 million won for a single mana blade, even though it's just a consumable item. Then she pulls up a huge shopping list on her phone, and Jaehan starts to worry. A few hours earlier, the woman, Park Hannah, had introduced herself as being from the Yunhua Guild. She said Sungwon wanted to send him a gift since his admission to Milla's was close. Jaehan thought they'd maybe buy a few elixirs and artifacts. She suggests they go check out more gear, but Jaehan stops her and says armor won't be necessary because he already has something usable. He shows her the shadow armor he got from Nightshade. It grants stealth when equipped, and since it's B rank gear, he doubts they'll find anything better. The stealth effect makes it even more valuable. Noticing that skill, Hannah asks if he also wants an artifact that gives stealth since every raider would want one, though getting it here would be hard. Jaein says he doesn't need one. He adds that stealth items are already rare and most people only get them by luck in dungeons because so few raiders can use stealth. Hannah agrees and says the only raider in the country with that skill is her brother. Then she casually walks off and Jaein asks what she means. She tells him manager Park Sung-jae is her brother. That stuns Jae. As she leaves, he can't believe it. They act nothing alike. Suddenly his eyes start glowing and the Nornir system says an unknown entity is resonating with him. He feels sick for a moment, then spots the same trail of light he once saw at the treasure gate. He rushes after it and Hannah calls out, but he says he'll be right back. As he follows the light, absolute eye of God activates, tearing through the illusion and revealing what's real. The system says the first low-rank function of absolute eye of God has unlocked, giving him a new skill called detection. Detection is also extraordinary rank. It lets him inspect unidentified items and cancel out an enemy's stealth or illusion skills. While Jaein stares in surprise, the Nornir system activates detection on its own. Elsewhere, a close-range match is underway and ends with Han Hoyen defeating his opponent. People in the crowd praise how amazing Hoyen is, though they also say the gap between him and his opponent was obvious. That's why they call him a future S-rank raider. After the match, his father praises him for doing well. Still, he warns Hoyen not to get carried away because the win was expected. Without any excitement, Hoyen says he already knows. His father tells him to get ready for the next event and go take a shower. While showering, Hoyen thinks about how much he hates this exhausting life where his own thoughts and wishes don't matter. This isn't the kind of raider he wanted to become, and he wonders when everything went wrong. Back at the store, the Nornir system reveals an item called Mistiltine, a growth-type weapon. It's the mistletoe branch that killed Baldur, holds immense magic, grows with its user, and grants mana perception when equipped. Mana perception is an A-rank passive that pushes the user's mana-sensing ability to the limit. Jaein gets excited, but he also wonders if the Nornir system is playing another trick on him. As he keeps chasing the light, he passes by Hoyen. Nearby, Hoyen's father keeps picking out equipment for him. When Hoyen asks if they really need this much, his father says it will all be useful. Since Hoyen is destined to become an S-rank raider, there's no need to be cheap. Hoyen points out that spending this much will affect his mother's hospital bill for the month, but his father shuts him down. He says that's his concern, and Hoyen should just focus on training. So like always, Hoyen gives in. While his father keeps shopping, the boy wonders what he's even doing here. As they move through the store, people recognize him and whisper about why a combat genius like him is in a place like this. Hoyen ignores them, even as some try to take pictures. He wonders if this is really the raider life he dreamed of, or if he's just some animal trapped in a zoo. When he first awakened as a child, his mother smiled and patted his head. Back then, in that poor and gloomy house, he dreamed of becoming a raider because he thought he could change everything, but that hope didn't last long once his father decided to use it. Now he's basically a machine, only doing what his father tells him to do. He wonders how someone this pathetic is supposed to survive 3 years at Milla's academy. Then an announcement comes over the speakers. A dungeon break has happened near the department store and monsters have appeared. An announcement says agency raiders are on the way and everyone should calmly follow the staff. A dungeon break happens when a dungeon isn't cleared in time and monsters spill out. Staff members wave people over and try to keep the crowd from panicking. As his father heads for the evacuation route, he asks Hoyen why he's still standing there instead of moving. He reminds Hoyen that he's a genius who could one day rule Korea's raider world. If he gets hurt here, it could ruin his chances at the Milla's entrance event. There's nothing to gain by stepping in, but Hoyen still doesn't budge. He knows the agency raiders should handle the goblins fast, but until they arrive, what happens to the civilians who can't defend themselves? This is his chance. Ignoring his father's shout, Hoyen runs the other way. To him, this is a shot to prove he really can be a raider. He has to find out whether he's worth anything right now. Anything like the person he once wanted to show his mother. But while running, he suddenly stops after coming across a group of goblins. For a second, he just freezes. Sweat runs down his face, and his body won't move at all. Only his shaking eyes do. As the monsters charge, he realizes he can't move a finger or even take one step. He tries to force himself, and one goblin gets close enough to swing its sword. Hoyen can't understand it. He knew this would be dangerous, and he's dreamed of being a raider for years. These are just low-level monsters, so why is he this afraid? Before the blade reaches him, Jaeyoon slams the goblin into the ground. Jaeyoon stares in shock, then falls back onto the floor as the stranger asks if he's on Hoyen. A little earlier, Jae-yoon had spent 50,000 won of his own money on an item from the store when Hannah called out in panic, asking why he suddenly ran to the unappraised item section. All she saw was a rock-like item in his hand. Jae-yoon wonders if it only looks worthless to everyone else, but he doesn't explain and just says it's nothing. Then the announcement about the dungeon break echoes through the store. Before Hannah can say anything, Jae-yoon runs off again and smashes through the department store window to jump outside. On the way down, he spots a pack of goblins below him. The moment he lands, he fires a rain of holy arrows at them, dropping several right away. As people nearby stare in confusion, Jae-yoon realizes there are more goblins than he expected. Clearing them without casualties might be tough, but he tears through them with lightning chain and another barrage of holy arrows. Moving across the area, he finds Hoyeon surrounded by goblins and jumps on the one about to crush him. Jae-yoon, a little surprised, asks if he's on Hoyeon. He didn't expect to run into the unfortunate genius here. Still shaken, Hoyeon asks who he is, but Jae-yoon ignores that and says he needs his help. While he's talking, Hoyeon spots a goblin behind him and shouts a warning. Yet Jae-yoon calmly says he knows. Without even turning, he activates lightning chain and rips through the goblin's upper body. Hoyeon's eyes go wide. Jae-yoon tells him they can't let the monsters reach the residential area, then asks if he plans to keep sitting there. That gets Hoyeon back on his feet, reaching for a weapon. Strangely, the fear choking him starts to fade the moment he hears those words. This is what a real raider looks like, and right now his job is to save people. A little farther ahead, they run into another goblin group. Jae-yoon asks if Hoyeon knows taunt, a skill that draws nearby enemies, then tells him to grab as much aggro as he can and asks if he can handle it. Hoyeon nods. As he summons his sword, he realizes he can't hesitate anymore and needs to do whatever he can. He drives the sword into the ground and uses taunting roar, sending out a huge wave of energy that pulls every monster within 50 m onto him. The skill drags all the goblins' attention to Hoyeon, and Jae-yoon is surprised. It's stronger than plain taunt, and Hoyeon can keep using it. He remembers that in his previous life, Hoyeon only ended up as a B-rank raider. No one knows if it was because of the weak mindset he showed earlier or something else. Even with all his hype, Hoyeon fell fast, which is why people called him the unfortunate genius. Still, Jae-yoon thinks a weak mentality can be fixed. As he unleashes lightning chain, he decides Hoyeon is a valuable card worth using. In the middle of the fight, he suggests they wrap this up fast, and Hoyeon eagerly agrees. Jae-yoon's chains rip through goblins, while Hoyeon cuts down the rest. Before long, the area is covered in goblin corpses. When a raider finally arrives, he can only wonder what happened here. The two boys just look at him, and the man introduces himself as Park Kyung-hoon from the raider agency. He asks if the two of them really killed all these goblins. After glancing at Jae-yoon, Hoyeon says yes. Kyung-hoon recognizes Hoyeon as the famous prodigy, but he should still only be around high school age. The boy beside him looks about the same, so he can't believe they handled this many monsters alone. Completely baffled, Kyung-hoon admits he has no idea how to report this. Jae-yoon says he actually wants to talk to him about that. He asks Kyung-hoon to report that the agency handled everything, since no one would believe the truth anyway. Kyung-hoon says that would clearly break the law, but Jae-yoon points out it only matters if there's anyone who saw what happened. Kyung-hoon explains that as part of government agency, he can't just do whatever he wants. Still, if Jae-yoon wants to stay unnoticed, he'll keep this quiet, and the boys will still get the hunting reward. Jae-yoon says that's not needed, and asks him to give the whole reward to Hoyeon while keeping his own involvement secret. He already has Jae-yoon kicking him, so money isn't the issue. With the mill's entrance event close, it's better not to stand out too much. Besides, putting Hoyeon in his debt will help him more later. After a short pause, Jae-yoon asks if that's all. Just as Jae-yoon turns to leave, Hoyeon stops him and asks what he means. Jae-yoon did almost everything. Jae-yoon pauses and says he has his own reasons. The real reason is simple. He doesn't want his father noticing him this close to the mill's enrollment. Before regressing, he ignored that issue because his combat talent was terrible. Now he won't. His father still doesn't know he switched to magic, and there's no telling what trouble that could cause. For now, he plans to stay hidden. Revenge works best when it's quiet. He needs to grow stronger where that man can't see him, and wait until the final moment to rip his throat out. Meanwhile, Hoyeon doesn't know what to do. He couldn't have done this alone, so taking all the credit feels wrong. But with that money, he might be able to ease his mother's illness, even a little. He wanted to become a raider he'd never be ashamed of, but if his mother died because he let this chance slip away, he doesn't know if he could bear it. Jae-yoon Jinja watches him and realizes Hoyeon's hesitation doesn't seem to come from pride. There must be another reason. To help him decide, Jae-yoon tells him to think carefully. What he did today was worth that reward. If he hadn't stepped in, someone would have died. That finally gets through to Hoyan. If his mother dies because he hesitates now, his dream won't mean anything anyway. In the end, he tells Jae-yoon he'll repay this debt someday. As Jae-yoon gets ready to leave, Hoyan asks for his name and contact info. Noticing Hoyan is speaking politely, Jae-yoon tells him he doesn't need to. They're the same age. Then he adds that they're both future cadets at Mills Academy, so they'll be seeing each other a lot. On the day of the Mills Academy enrollment, Jae-yoon and Yoo-jung stand in the crowd. Nearby, some students notice Hoyan and call him the genius warrior. To them, he looks like he's from a completely different world. Then they spot a beautiful girl behind him, and her name is Seo Aina. Jae-yoon notices she's already drawing attention, just like in his past life, when she always ranked among the most popular raiders. If he could get Seo Aina on his side, too, he'd gain another strong card. Still, she's different from the others, so there's no need to force anything yet, especially since he already knows other useful people. Then Yoo-jung cuts into his thoughts, saying it's gross to stare at Seo Aina like that just because she's pretty, and Jae-yoon asks what nonsense she's talking about. A man steps onto the stage and welcomes the new Mills Academy cadets. He introduces himself as Chairman Gu Jian. Jae In-sung recognizes him right away. In his past life, this bastard did something terrible to Kim Yu-shin. He turns to her and quietly tells her to stay sharp. Anything could happen at Mills. She looks confused by the warning, then says she'll do just fine. After enrolling, Kim Yu-shin became a genius magician who ranked in the top 3. Jae-in swears he won't let her die again. Chairman Gu Jian announces the entrance ceremony is starting, then adds that there's a special event. The freshmen and seniors will enter a demiplane and steal each other's name tags. The moment he declares the freshman hunt has begun, a magic circle appears under the cadets' feet, startling everyone. Kim Yu-shin jumps back in surprise, but Jae-in quickly grabs her hand so they don't get separated. Elsewhere, Manager Park Sung-jae remembers that today is Jae-in's entrance ceremony. Sung-jae says it already started. She wanted to wish him luck, but now he won't see her message. She asks if the freshman hunt lasts 3 days again, and Sung-jae confirms it'll take place in the demiplane for all 3. She hates that she can't contact Jae-in for that long, but Sung-jae says he expected that and sent a message for her. Excited, the guild master asks if Jae-in replied. At the same time, Jae-in and the others are transported into the demiplane. He checks on Kim Yu-shin, who still looks dazed, and asks if she's okay. Then he glances behind him and spots Seo Aina, a born genius with a magic aptitude of 92. In his past life, she changed how people saw magicians and later became an S-rank raider, following Seonjin's path. Back at the Manhwa Guild, Sung-jae says Jae-in replied and told him not to worry. In Mills Academy's central control room, the staff gathers to watch the freshman hunt. Instructor Kim Seonjin says this year's class has many strong cadets, and An Hoyan is even getting attention overseas. He adds that Seo Aina, Kim Young, and Lee Seo-hyuk all scored around 90 or higher in aptitude. Still, the records for cadets who switch career paths haven't been updated yet. The chairman tells him not to bother. Students who change paths on a whim won't last long at Mills anyway. Most cadets at Mills are talented, but some clearly stand far above the rest. To the chairman, average talent exists to support true geniuses. He sees no reason to give those weaker cadets chances. Sometimes, when an awakened faces death or an enemy they can't beat, they get another shot called reawakening. Gu Jian believes raising one A-rank raider is worth throwing away 100 C-ranks. If they fail, they simply weren't good enough. His job is to find the best ones and hand them over to someone behind the scenes, and he thinks he can't waste any more time. The freshman hunt happens in an artificial demiplane made with magic, a place where things impossible in the real world can happen, like changing time flow or bending space. Every year, about 5% of cadets fail here. The event is brutal and forces them to see their limits. Inside the demiplane, Chairman Gu Jian appears on a screen and starts explaining the rules. Only C-rank skills or lower can be used. Stealing a name tag earns points. Seniors get 10,000 for taking a freshman's, while freshmen get 100,000 for taking a senior's. Since those points work all across Mills, the more the better. Jae-in realizes that means he can't use his A-rank skill, Lightning Chain, but the chairman never mentioned unique skills. After laying out the basic rules, the chairman says all skills will be reduced to 1/10 of their normal power for safety, so no one has to worry about serious injuries. Jae-in calls that nonsense. There is still no word about unique skills and no limit on raw stats, either. The chairman clearly wants to weed out the useless and keep only the gifted. Jae-in immediately tells Kim Yu-shin they need to move and find shelter. They'll be stuck here for 3 days. The demi-plane has things that can help or hurt them, like traps that weaken people, healing ponds, the nightmare forest, places to gather food, and shelters. If they won't last 3 days, finding shelter matters most. As they move, Kim Yushin asks if they should bring Sioana with them. She's a magic cadet, too, and having one more ally would help. Ji-yoon is annoyed that she makes perfect sense because teaming up with Sioana really would be useful. The problem is, he can't control that variable. Everything he knows about her came from the news, including a terrible day when she lost control in anger and put many lives at risk. He tells Kim Yushin they can't make that choice lightly. There's no guarantee Sioana won't betray them. On top of that, she's